Micol, how did you get started in crypto? What did you start collecting, and how did you get there?
So I started, well, first of all, I didn't start collecting straight digital art. My first kind of introduction to crypto was through Ethereum and Bitcoin back in 2019. I had a good friend of mine who is actually an artist who had just started on Superware at the time. He used to live in London, then he moved back to Italy. And I bought my first ETH or some ETH, and I started looking into, at the time it was mainly like super rare, known origin, and Rarible. Those were the free platforms basically. So I mean, it's crazy to think that now two out of three don't. I mean, Rarible exists, but it's not that common. Known origin has gone down, so yeah, it's super rare is so yeah, I mean, it's that was my intro into let's say digital art, crypto. Actually, the first artist that I ever collected is Color. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he's an artist from Mexico. One of, I would say, like the group of the first artists that kind of started minting artworks, and his work, I'm totally obsessed with his work even to this date. Still have the first work that I collected, never sold it. I'm not very good at selling art in general. I think I only sold one artwork out of everything I collected. And yeah, that was it. So I found his work on Rarible actually, and I collected it. And then from there, it kind of started my journey into finding out more about the artists that were populating the space and founding Vertical Crypto and so on and so forth.
And were you collecting art before digital art, or were you studying art before you started the NFT journey?
Yeah, so I think from since I was young, from my upbringing, I've always been, I would say, exposed to art in a way. My dad is a big art fan and passionate about art. So even when I was younger and we would be, traveling to different countries or cities or in Milan, where I'm from, we would always go to visit a museum, a gallery, an exhibition, especially with my dad, I would say. And yeah, I think unconsciously that sort of created an interest for me in this type of world. And I would think even an eye, which is something that I've started, realizing more and more now, how exposed I was to art from a very young age. Because I didn't study art, so I don't come from a trained background of studying art history or so on. But I think maybe in a way I kind of trained my eye or just understanding of art in general through what I was exposed to when I was a bit younger with my family. And when I came to London, when I moved to London for university, I think, London is probably a very artistic city, a cultural city. And so I was exposed to a lot of that here as well.
What was a point when you were like, well, I really want to do this full time. This is a business.
Yeah, so I started when I kind of started getting into like crypto and then digital art and so on. I was working at Facebook at the time, so it was still called Facebook when I was there on the Instagram side of things. And I actually worked for now called Meta for about like a good, I would say, year and a half in the meantime that I was building Vertical. And I don't think there was like a moment where I was like, yeah, this is working out. I think it was just more of we had started, building a sort of, I think I called it a business after probably 2 years. Like it was never a business for me. It was always a project. It was always like a passion that I was doing. I was finding out about new artists. I was interviewing them. We then started doing exhibitions. We then I started traveling, and all of a sudden it kind of became something that was more real and not just like a side project that I'm doing with weird internet friends type of thing. And there was a moment where I was, first of all, quite tired about working where what I was doing. And it felt as though I was working like I was doing two completely opposite things. Like one is, working for a very centralized system governed by, a person that decides exactly how people consume content, what content needs to be created, and so on and so forth. And the other is the complete opposite, like a decentralized, system where everybody's free to do whatever they want, and the content that I'm consuming there is, the expression of, the real expression of like artistic creativity, really. And it just came to a point where I was like, it doesn't make any sense. And that doesn't mean that we were, I was settled in vertical, or that vertical had become, profitable in any way. But it just was the right time for me. And that's when, yeah, I left, and I started doing vertical full time. And with that, obviously, comes a understanding and like a responsibility to also be thinking about vertical crypto as a business, and trying to find ways and kind of paths that could make it sustainable.
Yeah, for me, it's fascinating because we don't know each other well, but I've seen you from afar and on different events many times. And for a while, you were on Twitter often, doing spaces, doing exhibitions, cool releases, all these really cool events and activations. But I don't had no idea about your backstory or what moves you, because you always sort of put the artist in front and remove yourself from the
Yeah.
conversation. That's
Yeah.
why we have these questions, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess that's true, actually. I never really, I mean, I have done some podcasts and interviews where, I tell the story, obviously, like I'm not trying to shy away from it. But when it comes to like vertical, it was really always, but it still is for me, like in general, like it is always about, the art and like the artists, and just trying to really like hone into what I think is, happening in this moment in time, which is a really interesting like cultural shift and artistic shift. And that was what was interesting for me. So I was just kind of like talking about what was interesting for me, basically. And my story was really, not something that I wanted to focus on. And I think like through the 4 years that we were building vertical, and then it kind of became what it was with the residency, and like with the exhibitions, with the gallery, and with the pop-ups. It was always very much led through what I was interested in that moment in time, and kind of like wanting to build that. So when it was COVID times, it was all about like online exhibitions, because obviously nobody could go anywhere. And then the residency, I think, is probably still to date, my biggest like achievement and project that I did. And then the galleries, so like the pop-ups around the world, which was obviously super exciting for me to be able to actually have a physical presence, and, build exhibitions and learn a lot about what it means to do that and have a space, and all of that. So, and then the selling part, obviously, like the auctions, all of that. So it was always like a constant kind of like learning curve. And yeah, was cool, was fun.
I was one of the lucky artists to be part of the vertical residency, and you've helped so many artists and collectors in the space. I'm curious, as you mentioned, it's like a learning experience, and one thing leading you to another. Regarding the residency and how to support artists, if you had to do it again, are there things you would do differently, or what would you think about that?
I'm not generally someone to like look back and say, okay, I wish I did this in this way. But I definitely, and I still think about this today, I would have wanted to find a way to make it sustainable and to keep it going. And this is not saying that it won't happen again, or, in the future there will be another iteration of the same residency, maybe in a different way. But I think what I struggled the most with that project, and that, the residency, was to find a way to allow it to sustain itself. Because realistically, what we were doing, all of the energy, like the people that were working behind the residency, the content, the mentors, the artists, etc., was either through grants, or some of the profit that we were getting from vertical and the exhibitions selling other art was going in to support the residency, which, is great, but also it's not sustainable in the long term. So I think that was not something that I would do differently. It's just something that I was thinking about constantly all the time. And I think in general, it's something, the sustainability was my biggest kind of that I was thinking about with the residency and with vertical in general. Like the idea of how to sustain a business that is completely focused on curation, artists, and that also wants to do things a little bit differently, and wants to support artists that are emerging and not that well known, that aren't commercial as, for example, A people. So yeah, I think like that was my ethos, and obviously with that you have to take in mind that it's going to be hard to sustain it long term.
And it's not only residency. I mean, the gallery model and a lot of models from the, I would say, early days.
Yeah, and you have to think that education is something that in general, like even in society, like people don't put a lot, like money doesn't go a lot into education, whilst it's the most important aspect of, I think, one of the most important aspects of society in order to build sustainable like foundations. And that's how I started the residency, because I was getting a lot of DMs of a lot of artists all around the world asking me about how do I mint an NFT, what is an NFT, what is Ethereum, what is a blockchain. And then I was like, okay, there's an opportunity here. And we were lucky enough and good enough as well to get a grant from the Tezos Foundation, which obviously helped a lot to put this residency into place. But again, we would see a lot of investment from the crypto side of things, the VC side of things, going into these projects that were, to me, so useless and completely useless. Honestly, I'm sorry, but useless. And
Which projects are you thinking about?
like, very kind of money making machines, like NFT projects or companies that have now gone to zero in the space of literally 8, 9, 10 months. Whilst we're building something that we thought, but I think the results show it, had this is the capacity to build artists and the career of artists long term. See Jean-Jacques, see Linda Dunia, see Ana Maria Caballero. Like all of these artists were part of a residency and more. Like I'm naming 3, but we had hundreds. We just didn't get the support, and because there was no immediate revenue making, and I know immediate kind of, okay, if I invest in this, I will make 10x tomorrow, which is how the crypto industry thinks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of was in a heist in the sense of like everybody was trying to rush and make the max amount of profit instead of thinking more realistic. And also you were like scrambling because you could do so many cool things back in the day that everybody was kind of experimenting. I mean, Proof of People was also, I thought, a really cool event in London.
Yeah.
The first one. Did you do I think you did a second one
Yeah,
in
we did a
Miami.
second one in New York. And then, yeah, we wanted to do a third one. I mean, never say never. Yeah, Proof of People was, I think, yeah, I mean, legendary, I have to say. And I still have people talking about it to this date. Like, it's crazy. It's been 4 years. People still remember Proof of People as the only event that kind of was shaping a little things, like moving things around and doing things differently. And I don't think there's been anything like it yet.
Think about now that you've done like these different sides of the market. Which one was resonating with you the most? I think you said the residency is probably where education is what has resonated the most. Or
I think definitely the residency is one of my, like, it's a project that I will keep almost like not a medal, but like something that I created that I think was beautiful. And that, because I see the results of it to this day. And I think to me that is priceless. Like it's just something that is so special. When I see like Linda, for example, she was in my first residency, like the first group of artists. And the way that her practice has evolved, and I've been introducing her to like museum curators. Like it's just insane to think about that and where she started, and how she applied, and she's from Senegal. Like it's just something that is very so very special. And Ana Maria Caballero, what she's done with poetry, like the way that it has developed in time, Jean-Jacques, like so many. And I think that obviously proof of people is the second one, I would say. Like, it was such a special moment and a special event. But yeah, the residency is something that I still see the results and like I still see the impact of to this day.
Yeah.
So you created and worked and initiated all this great project, but I know you're also working on a lot of many new things and representing like the digital art and space, which is always like constantly evolving. You're definitely trying new things as well and working on new projects. Are there any things you kind of learned from the past, even though you said you don't especially look at the back and say, oh, I would do things differently, but previous cycles and now where we kind of like see a change in dynamic, are there any advice you would give to artists or collectors?
I think, well, now obviously I work in an ecosystem which is fellowship that is very structured, and like, we have, we're a small team, we're 4 people, but it works very much as a gallery. And I would say we are a contemporary art gallery in all forms. We have locations, we work exactly like any other, gallery in the contemporary art world. I personally don't see my like life or kind of the what I do in cycles. And this is something that I've never thought about. I see ups and downs, like moments where things are a bit lighter and moments where things are a bit heavier. That's how I see it. I have never based any of my like work that I do, exhibitions that I curate, artists that I work with based on what is going on in crypto. Because if I did that, first of all, I wouldn't be doing art and I wouldn't be in this industry and it wouldn't be the right thing. So my kind of like way that I go about my day and like my months and my years is trying to work along with the market, whatever moment that is. And I think actually right now, in the last, I would say, year, it's probably been the most interesting time to see how, the digital art market is shaping itself, because a lot of collectors have left, they're not around anymore. Some have liquidated their collections as well. Some want to liquidate their collections, and others are really honing in and like building incredible collections of digital art. And I think even from an artistic perspective, like from the artists themselves, there's artists who have completely left and might be back, maybe now, maybe in the future when, ETH goes to 5 or 10K, I don't know. And others who have found, in these moments of, let's say, quiet-ish ways to just build their own practice and find other paths and other ways in which they can also like support themselves in the meantime. Some people have gone back to having full-time jobs, which is how the art market works in general. Like, if you think about the contemporary art world at the moment, for example, all of the contemporary art world is struggling so much. I have a lot of friends that have galleries. I was speaking to some of them actually on Saturday, and yeah, they are struggling. The world in general is struggling to kind of like meet ends. But it's a matter of, understanding how you can navigate that and seeing who is, swimming in the sea and who is just drowning. I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
Yeah, I think contemporary art is struggling much more
Yeah,
and is
100%.
going to struggle much more than we realize. But something that I wanted to talk to you about is Twitter. It's sort of a weird topic. I'm definitely not the expert between the two of you, but that changed the dynamic as well for the whole digital art market. And now this is, you could say it's changed forever. So what do you think, how do you navigate talking about NFTs on what platforms, or what do you think, what do you think is hopeful, or how do you think it's going to develop? Like what are your expectations? Because part of this vertical was also that it was a really thriving community. And if you wanted to learn something about digital art, you just go on Twitter and you were on a space or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to say that all of the residency content is still online on YouTube, available for anyone, and there's so much content on there. So if anybody really wants to learn, and I talked to actually universities about this here in London as well, they have used the content in some of their like university courses, which for me it's amazing. So I am lucky enough now that I'm not really on Twitter that much, and I honestly couldn't be happier. I think the ecosystem, like the way that people are communicating on X. Twitter has changed a lot from like the time that I was doing vertical to now. There's a lot less kind of like talk or positive talk around like education. It's more about just either people that are really positive or people that are really negative. Like there's no in between. And it's very polarized, which I think is just in general a reflection of society a bit. We are quite polarized at the moment. So I think, social media kind of like reflects that. I personally use Twitter mostly to communicate like what we do in terms of like exhibitions and stuff like that. I have the luck and the fortune to be able to meet a lot of people face to face now when we do exhibitions. And I honestly think that for me is the best way. But I always thought that even when I was doing vertical, my most, I would say, impactful conversations I've had face to face, and when we've done events and when we've done exhibitions and when I've met people. Twitter was a, let's say, funnel, for information, which is good if you can find the right ways to funnel it. I don't think that's the case anymore now. I mean, I can't even find the right information on X anymore. It's all either very like coin focused, or it goes in waves. Like for example, last week it was all about the punk strats, and so everything is about that.
You want to talk about that, or I'm just making a joke? You want to
Yeah, so
talk
like you
about
can't
that, or
really funnel anything. Like we struggled to communicate to people that, we were doing a show of Mario Klingerman with some of like his most incredible works from 2007, which to me is like, if you're serious about collecting digital art, that is where you should be looking at, like no questions asked. So I think like I now find other methods to communicate to people, which is mostly on a one-on-one basis, whether it's through like DMs or emails or WhatsApp. But Twitter is very noisy for me at the moment, and noisy and not useful as well.
yeah, I agree. I think it's a big struggle, and it was a big driver in 21 during COVID, all of that, which formed it.
Yeah. Definitely. And obviously it's nice that like artists can contact collectors and have that, one-to-one like communication. I'm sure Jean-Jacques, you have that as well. I think you're very good at actually communicating with collectors and so on. But at the same time, it maybe starts on Twitter and then it kind of maybe moves to somewhere else, then you want to connect with them on a personal level or meet them, or maybe you exchange numbers or emails or whatever it is that kind of like works best for the single person, I would say. But yeah, I would say Twitter is kind of like a funnel of stuff. Like I use it more as like an announcement channel at the moment.
Yeah, Jean-Jacques, do you have anything?
No, it's interesting, and you mentioned, for example, the works of Mario Klingerman, which I really absolutely love, and that I saw on Twitter
Good.
as well. For you, what is the most important among this collection that people should look at if they are collecting digital art? Which I completely agree.
I don't know if it's the most important, but the one that I connected with the most is the Cycle Gan makeover portraits and Chicken or Beef. This is my personal favorites. But if I have to say, like the Sketchmaker series where he was making basically generative art on Flash is also insane. So all of it really. But my personal favorites are definitely that. The Chicken or Beef, I initially wasn't connecting with it. And then when I heard the story about how he trained the models on pornography, because there was nothing, the AI models were not trained on nude bodies. So he kind of like, learned taught them how to do that, and also connected with Robbie Barrett, who was also doing the same at the same time. Like, I don't know, I feel there's a lot of rich history there in terms of how these artists, and it's not only Mario, there's Mario, there's Robbie, there's Helena Sarin, there's a few, Memo, that were kind of really building these initial like AI models and testing them and experimenting them and breaking them. And I think, yeah, these two are the ones that really resonated with me the most. I know a lot of people, I heard the feedback that the Cycle Gan portraits were a bit daunting. I love that. Like for me, the rawness and the grittiness and the dark side of the portraits is also what defines Mario, I think, as an artist. It's very recognizable in his style. If you think about Memories of Passerby, the work that was also auctioned on Christie's, it's that as well. Is these uncanny kind of portrait and faces, which I personally love. So yeah,
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a chicken or beef
nice.
with but I asked George because I don't know Mario's work that much.
Okay.
George Buck,
Yeah.
because I don't know Mario's work that in detail. What do you think about this whole idea of like at the moment there's this sort of two trends of like buying more contemporary work and buying like historical
Early,
work,
yeah.
and really with the idea that like there's less speculation if you quote unquote buy historically relevant work. What
Yeah,
do you
it's a
think
really
about this
interesting
narrative?
debate and a really interesting topic. I have to say that for me, what drives me in the sense that, like, think about the way that I collect work is building a collection that will stand the test of time. So, and building from artists that I really respect and that I think are important in the history of contemporary digital art. So Mario is one of them for me and has always been. He's one of the first artists that I ever met actually when I was doing vertical. So I think, having the possibility of collecting some of his early work is to me very important. At the same time, I don't think all early works are to be collected or are worth collecting. So it really depends on, your own kind of narrative that you want to build in your collection. There's some collectors who just want the most contemporary work and are really into, nice aunties and rope and noper and, all of the more kind of like new age AI, I call it this way. Me personally, I love that stuff, but I'm also very interested in the more kind of like, I don't know, older like AI experimentations. I love Helena Sarin. She's one of my favorite artists ever. Again, I love Memo. It's kind of like this more raw aesthetic of AI, which I really like. But that's my personal, opinion and my, personal kind of like judgment. And then everyone is different. Don't necessarily think that, if it's historical, it's good, it has to be collected, and if it's not, no. Because some historical works are, yeah, they're great. They might have been created in 2016, but they're maybe meaningless.
It's an easy shortcut to say, yeah, because it was very early. It's
Yeah, exactly.
was good when
Exactly.
And Ether Rock. You know that
Yeah, yeah,
work?
yeah, 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 exactly. Exactly. Yeah, like some of those stuff that is just, what is that?
I was
I,
quietly thinking about the same Ether Rock as well.
Yeah.
A question that I have is when you think about this contemporary versus historical, we obviously seen like a big reshifting of we've been talking about this in the podcast, how the dynamics shifted. And with that also the prices. We obviously have seen like crazy prices for some artists and some rather humble prices for others. And I feel like there's a lot of people that they question these market prices because of obvious dynamics. Like versus, did you launch on this platform versus that platform? You'll achieve like a weird dynamic. I don't know how to explain it better, but do you think that the market will correct over time a lot, or will that just be like manifested because of the price and that's it?
I think the market is already correcting itself.
Hmm.
And I think there are certain artists that maybe have thoughts or had ideas of what their like market value was when they were doing works in 2021, which is not realistic and not correct, in my opinion, and based on a lot of speculation. The ones who are smart enough will adjust to current market situation, which to me is the most realistic kind of market prices. So I've worked with some artists, both with vertical but also with fellowship, who have maybe released work back in the day, like in bull market beeple time, and have done it now, and the prices are very different, but at the same time they adjusted that to reflect the current market conditions, which is how then I would base, if they were to do more work, then I would base it on this year, like this year and last year basically, rather than base it on 2021.
how, because you are definitely some kind of interface between the artist and the collectors, it can be challenging for an artist to kind of lower their pricing because they might feel that the collector might feel betrayed or something. I mean, how do you, I don't. But what do you think about collectors? Do they? Some of them, are they upset, or do they understand that market conditions, so they should price their work
Well,
differently?
obviously, some are upset. Yes, for sure. I think the ones that are upset are the ones that see art more as an investment than actually collecting art. And so, of course, they will be upset because also some of their investments might be very, very down compared to when they bought them in 2021, which would also be the case for a lot of other stuff that they bought, probably stupid NFT projects, for example. So I think like it just depends on, I'm lucky enough to have built a pool of collectors that are actually really committed to artists and art and are really interested in building like a sustainable art collecting practice, because also collecting is a practice, you know, and you need to learn from it. I think there's a lot of collectors who also maybe started in a way and then shifted into becoming actually, you know, arts passionate people and don't want to be selling works after, you know, 1 day or 2 months or 3 months. I'm not going to lie. I think everybody would like to collect an artwork and then think that in 10 years it'll be, you know, valued at 10x or 50x. Of course, that is, you know, that would be amazing for everyone. But I think ultimately there is also a moment where you have to have a very frank conversation and just say, listen, this is what happened in 2021. Those were unrealistic prices. This is what's happening now. My practice has, you know, evolved, changed. The market has evolved and changed. And this is what I'm doing now. If you're in it, great. If you're not, see you later. Like, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it's how it should be. And I think through that, you scrape a lot of the people and collectors who also you don't want to have, because you don't want to have a collector that is on your back telling you what to do, what not to do, where to sell, how to sell, at what price to sell. That's not their job.
Thanks for sharing this, because I'm sure it is extremely valuable for artists who sometimes don't really know what to do, and there's only upsides from what I understood of what you said. Like, helps the artist to stay in the market and to share their work, but also to kind of filter the best collectors and to keep only the ones who are interested in the long term.
And also the galleries, you know, they have this role as well. You know, they are, you know, galleries since the longest time have been the intermediaries between artists and collectors. So our role, my role, you know, Fellowship's role, Verse's role, and other galleries' role is also to have that conversation with collectors, you know, when presenting the work, when showing them, you know, what we're doing. If they have, you know, issues and situations where they're not happy, you know, usually, you know, that is where the galleries come in and have that conversation. And I think that's also, it's also a matter of like education. I've had a lot of conversations with collectors that maybe started in a way and then ended up in a completely, you know, different way because they understood or they learned, or, you know, we exchange feedbacks on certain stuff. So I think everybody, especially I say younger collectors, not in terms of age, but just in terms of the time that they have started collecting, are learning. We are learning as well as galleries and curators of how to adjust. And the most important thing is to have an open route of communication, both with the artists, with the collectors, and with, you know, the galleries and the platforms.
So, can you tell us about what's happening next week in London?
So this week, actually. So on Thursday, with Fellowship, we are opening a solo show with Harold Cohen and, well, with the Harold Cohen estate and Gazzelli and Various Art. It's actually quite an interesting show. We're going to be showing Aaron Sukuba plotter works. Fellowship will be working with the estate for the next 2 years. And so we have an amazing pool of these plotters that were created by Cohen with Aaron. The show is opening on Thursday, on the 16th of October in London, and it actually is obviously at the same time as Frieze. Gazzelli is showing Cohen at Frieze Masters as well. So we have the double kind of us showing, the plotter works, and they're showing other works of Cohen at Frieze Art Fair, which is amazing. And next week, we are in Paris for Art Basel Paris, both on a kind of personal level with FemGen. So FemGen is a project that I started with Alex Historic from Right Click Save in 2021 actually, and it's our 4th edition. So FemGen has kind of probably the project that has lasted the test of time, like longer. We did the first one in Miami, the second one in Marfa, the third one in London last year at the V&A, and now the fourth one is going to be in Paris. It's the concept and the curational concept around FemGen is to highlight artists working with generative systems and machines that are female, queer, LGBTQ+, etc. And it started in a time where a lot of the focus, a lot of the sales, a lot of what was happening within the industry, especially in 2021, was very much skewed towards a certain category of artists. And so this just helped shed a little bit of light on other artists in different kind of like spheres that are working with machines and generative art and so on. And this time it's actually quite an interesting one because for the first time we're putting together contemporary artists. So Gretchen Andrews, Sayeko Ihara, Herman Bourdain, and Jake Elves with pioneers. So Vera Monlar, Ana Olivia Cordeiro, Copper Gilliff, Nancy Burson, who are part of Le Random's collection. And kind of the contemporary artists have created work that is not in response, but more in kind of conversation with some of we call them pioneer works. And so this will be a 1-day event where we have 2 panels and an exhibition in Paris on Tuesday, the 21st. And then throughout the whole week with fellowship, we have an exhibition with ThankYouX, who is a painter from Los Angeles. And that will be going on the whole week from Tuesday to Sunday.
It's going to be amazing because also the Grand Palais is it's such an iconic place. So It's going to be great to see first the FemGen, all the events you described, and then the event in.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there's Code and Matter as well with William Mapan, and which is next to us. So we're all kind of in the same area. So it's going to be a very good week, I think, for like digital art and in general, just art in Paris, I would say. And London.
The estate of Harold Cohen, the Plotter series is amazing. You mentioned other kind of works. Is it possible to have some kind of view of non-public Harold Cohen's work, which might come to the market somehow?
So with fellowship, we're working specifically with the Plotter works, and then the Harold Cohen Estate and Gazzelli, who manages the Harold Cohen Estate, are showing other more kind of portraiture works of Aaron at Frieze Masters. And yeah, I mean, Harold Cohen has a very extensive art practice, and even before he was working with machines, there's a beautiful array of work that he did, which is very much like kind of more expression, like paintings. And so he has a really, really, really vast body of work. And with fellowship, obviously, our focus is on the machine and like his connection with Aaron and the work that he did. And then the Gazzelli and the Harold Cohen Estate are obviously working a little bit more on like his broader kind of practice.
Amazing.
Good.
Cool.
That's it. I have no more questions. I hope the first bit wasn't fucked up because of this little tech issue. But yeah.
Let me know if it is, and maybe we can do it again or something.
It shouldn't be, because I can see we have 48 minutes of recording. So everything looks as it should.
Cool.
Yes. Are you also going to do stuff for fellowship in Miami?
Yes, we are doing Miami. We're actually in the Meridians section of Art Basel with Holly Hendren and Matt Dryhurst. So we will have a big kind of like more immersive, let's say, side of their work. It's going to be new work actually from them. And then on the digital front, so with Art Basel, Eli is doing the kind of Art Basel digital. We are bringing IXLs. So we're working with Artex Code and with Itzel, and we will be doing we're bringing her basically.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
But is it the first time there is digital contemporary art in Art Basel main fair?
Yes, I think we are the first gallery in terms of like, I mean, other galleries have shown digital art. Like, it's not just us. Like, the Art Basel Miami has had digital art before. But I think in terms of like a gallery that was born within the digital arts like ecosystem, like fellowship, we are the first ones to participate in the actual main fair. Yes, which is crazy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a really good result. I mean, we applied last year, and then it was good. It was great. Yeah, it's a very good result.
Very well deserved.
Nice.
Mm-mm.
Perfect.
Thank you, Micol. It was great.
Nice. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
This is really my fault because I wanted to organize the invite link and everything, and
You said it's such a stupid thing with Riverside. The way that you cannot have a Riverside profile and then invite team members. You know, the way the invite works. It's really...
shall we stop
Big-
now and
Yeah,
see if it works?
sure. I'll just text you, okay?
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sorry, one thing I should do is record the questions I asked Micol in the same setting so it doesn't look too strange. So we can cut it and put it at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, it was how did you get started?
Yes. Micol, how did you get started in crypto? What did you start collecting and how did you get there?
Yes.
And were you collecting art before digital art, or were you studying art before you started the NFT journey?
We need to quit crypto and we need to build an application. We need to build a webcam. What the fuck is this? No, I've got everything up there, but Imaging Edge is not working.